Senator Cotton.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your appearance this morning. I want to return to the topic Senator Langford broached, which is why Vladimir Putin and Russia's leaders thought they could get away with such a brazen set of actions last year, and doing so in a, quote, noisy fashion, as Director Comey testified last week. Dr. Godson, I'd like to hear your point of view on this, and specifically I'd like to hear your thoughts about the context in which Vladimir Putin did this in 2015 and 2016. In the previous 8 years, Russia had invaded Georgia, it had invaded and seized Crimea, its rebels had been supported and backed in eastern Ukraine to occupy the Donbas. They'd been provided missiles that had shot a civilian aircraft out of the sky. Russia had repeatedly violated the INF Treaty, and the Obama administration had come into office proclaiming a reset, and then in 2012, Barack Obama mocked his opponent for claiming that Russia was our #1 foe and promised Dmitry Medvedev that more could be done after the election when he had more flexibility. Would that series of events have emboldened Vladimir Putin to think he might be able to get away with such a noisy intrusion into our political system?
Well, I would suggest that you're right. I think that this does not help in restraining Russian interests in expanding in the near abroad and as far abroad as they can, and so that the train of actions that you described there didn't exactly persuade him that we would take his intervening in other matters such as elections seriously, and so that it's going to take, I think, some time and some activity by the United States, some important activity to be able to establish our reputation in this arena. And I know it's beyond the sort of just the remit of the Intelligence Committee, but intelligence can play a major role in this. But I think this is a whole of government business, a policy issue, and so it's going to be more than intelligence. But I would hope, though, that we are in fact gaining the kinds of information we need to have an informed judgment about that you are asking about. In other words, was he tempted by our lack of action? I hope, I presume, that the intelligence community has a tasking that identifies the Soviet responses and their perceptions, and that if we don't have such a tasking on this subject, then we won't be in a very good position to ask it. But I think, in general, yes, I agree with the point you're making. I think the evidence is strong, but we need stronger information to keep us to give us a better judgment on this kind of issue.
Dr. Rumer, I don't think you've had a chance to opine on this question yet.
Thank you, sir. I believe that the biggest factor in Putin's decision to pursue this aggressive line of intervention in our domestic politics has been the realization on their part, as Mr. Watts has suggested, that this is a very lucrative environment in which they can achieve a lot with even a remotely plausible claim of deniability. So I think they just took advantage of the environment here.
Mr. Watts.
Yeah, I'd like to add two things to what I said before. One, I don't think they thought their hand was going to be exposed as much as it is today. I think they thought they could do it in a more subtle fashion. And so my belief is right now in Russia, they're probably trying to figure out how do I manage this situation now where I have extended myself. But the overriding issue with why Russia did this to the United States and does it now to Europe is we are weak. We do not respond. We have no organized response as a country or even policy towards Russia right now. So I think until we set the boundaries about how we are going to either push-pull with them, they're going to move as far as they can, pushing, and then when we set our policy positions, which we don't have right now, they'll move in kind based on whatever that is.
I have one final question about active measures. Dr. Godson, you talked in your testimony, or in your opening statement, about some of the history of Russian active measures. It's been going on for a long time. Bob Gates, former director of the CIA and Secretary of Defense, wrote in his first memoir, From the Shadows, about Russia's campaign against the NATO deployment of intermediate-range nuclear forces in Europe in 1983, quote, "During the period, the Soviets mounted a massive covert action operation aimed at thwarting INF deployments by NATO. We at the CIA devoted tremendous resources and effort at the time to uncovering this Soviet covert campaign," end quote. The United States is currently undergoing a long-delayed, deeply needed nuclear modernization campaign, upgrading our bombers, our dual-capable aircraft, our ground-based missiles, a long-range standoff cruise missile, and our submarine capability as well. Do you believe there is any chance that Russia is not currently engaged in an active measure campaign to try to thwart that modernization effort in the United States?
I think you're right. I do believe almost certainly that they are, if not already engaged in it, they will be.
Because that is simply what Russia does.
That is simply what this particular leadership, the successors to the previous generations, yes, believe and do. I don't think it's inevitable all Russians will do this, but I think these fellows will do it.
I apologize, gentlemen. My time has expired.
Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to sort of sum